it's quite, if we stick with the position of there just being inbuilt variation, some varieties are going to survive better than others from the original pair. So generally speaking, the creatures with the best genes are going to prosper more than those who've perhaps lost genetic material or haven't got so much genetic material. If we come to the question of where do species get new genetic material from, I don't think you have an answer. The only proposed mechanism is mutations, and the very word mutation means a corruption, really, of what is there already. So a mutation is either a duplication of something, or it's a corruption, a deterioration. It's an alteration of some kind. It's not, Richard, an improvement. No mutation actually improves a species. It's always something less good, inferior to the original. So what is the mechanism for one species to gradually, bit by bit, leap to another? There isn't any mechanism. And besides that, if we draw this back to the fossil record, where is the evidence for one species gradually, bit by bit, over time, transmuting into another species? It isn't there. It's absent.
Lloyd Pye would agree with you on that, that it's what he used to describe as sudden overhauls, complete overhaul.
Yeah, but where's the evidence for sudden overhauls?
Well, the fact that in the fossil record, that for example, he will say that Cro-Magnon man appears 200,000 years ago, bang, and there's no gradual change from Cro-Magnons to any of the what is alleged to come before, which was hominids. Right, so he says that you can't find an intermediate. There should be a lot of intermediate stages, and they're not there.
That's a good point, because what Lloyd Pye is struggling with, and he's honest in this, in any way, he can't see the intermediate species, and that's a very important point. Fully agree with him. What Lloyd Pye has done is to try and come up with an explanation for this. And actually, I mentioned Stephen Jay Gould earlier. Stephen Jay Gould was a biologist and evolutionist who recognised this problem. He recognised the fossils showed no example of transitions. He recognised that mutations were not a valid mechanism for evolution.
I mean, in humans they call it the missing link.
Yeah, the missing link. But what he came up with was a theory known as punctuated equilibrianism, or what he called hopeful monsters. And what he was driven, rather similar to Lloyd Pye, he was driven to say that the only possible explanation for the absence of all these missing links, if you like, was there must have been some kind of unknown kind of dramatic thing happen in the genes that suddenly produced, a dinosaur from a bird or something like that. The hopeful monster, punctuated equilibrianism. So it's a theory without a shred of evidence, but devised in order to explain the fact that we do not see intermediate forms or missing links.
Right. Well, with what Lloyd Pye will say about the human genome is that if you look at primates, they've all got 48 chromosomes. Man has only got 46, and you can see by looking at the second chromosome that it's just the second and third stitched together. And he will claim that can't happen randomly and the species survive. He will say that that's been done using genetic engineering and splicing, and the reason why he says it's being done is because the Anunnaki, who Sitchin has written about, who came to the Earth maybe 500,000 years ago, according to Sitchin, according to he alleges the Sumerian stone tablets, they had 46 chromosomes, and they wanted to create a subspecies to be their servant. And they couldn't breed with any hominids on Earth because they all had 48 chromosomes. So they took a hominid from Earth, they stitched two of the chromosomes together, and then they were able to crossbreed and produce a breeding pair, which in the Bible will be described as Adam and Eve. So it's kind of telling that story, if you like.
I'm not familiar with the work of Lloyd Pye, but it seems to me that he has intellectually grappled with the real problem, which is, and he's a specific one there, which he can't explain. What he's saying is you can't move from what you said is a 46 chromosome situation to 48 one gradually. There must have been some kind of intervention, to use his word. I would simply say to you that what we're dealing with here is a designer. We've got a creator and a designer who has decided that man will have this genetic structure. The ape will have that genetic structure. The trilobite will have that genetic structure. So we see evidence of this magnificent genome consisting of what? Thousands, tens of thousands of little units.
Well, information.
Information, yeah. It's information. And what Lloyd Pye has done is recognise that, that you can't bridge the gap gradually. There are differences. And what he's done is addressed it. How could have that happened? The Bible simply says that in the 6 days of creation, God designed every single plant, every single creature, according to a predetermined genetic plan. What Lloyd Pye has done is, if I may say so, to invent the possibility of some other agency that might have done it this way.
Based on some of the texts in the Sumerian tablets and some genetic. As I said, one of the things he points out is that a young gene pool, which is only 200,000 years old, wouldn't normally have that many genetic defects in it. The human genome's got far more genetic defects than, say, chimpanzees or other species.
So what you're saying is that the number of mutations could not have happened over a short period of time. Then is what you're saying.
It couldn't have gone that wrong if you've got one healthy breeding pair. He says that I think every human being has around about 40 genes that have got genetic defects in them, and I think it's several hundred or thousand across the whole gene pool. And that's far higher than in other species.
What we seem to be recognising here is that there's an original pair, the mitochondrial Eve, and that what's happened is in succeeding generations there have been mutations. Lloyd Pye's argument, and this is shared by a number of scientists, is that there have been so many mutations that must be spread over 100,000, 200,000 years.
Yeah, that's the dating using mitochondria.
That's right. Yeah. What I would say to you is the answer to this will be in a robust examination of exactly what the data prove in terms of the rate at which mutations have happened. So the argument will be settled in the end by what science says about the rate of mutation. And I would say to you that if we get to look at the original papers on mitochondrial DNA and so on, and if we properly analyse those, and if we look at a range of possible assumptions about the rate of mutations, one of the possibilities is that mitochondrial Eve was only 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. Another range of possibilities at the moment on how you interpret it is that she was 100 or 200,000 years ago. But I'm happy to go with what the data actually suggests, because I don't think they'll conflict with the 6,000 year date for the origin of the universe.
Right. If there is some sort of terraformer, as Lloyd Pye describes it, you would say it's God. If God can do that, then does God not need a creator then?
Isn't this the accident or design argument, more or less? The evolutionists are more or less saying, look, this happened by accident somehow. That somehow non-life became life 4 billion years ago or whatever. And we say no. The creation speaks of design. There's a designer here who's designed each individual creature, plant, uniquely, and that seems to me what Lloyd Pye's argument is here. Is he seems to be pointing to a creator, and what I can't quite understand is why he rejects the very simple creation account in the Bible. What is unscientific about that? Well,
I would say people would argue the time scale of it. That would be the main thing that scientists would point to. I would suggest that it's far longer than it suggests in the Bible.
Which actually brings us back neatly to the very thing that children are going to be taught, which is he says here, fossils provide information about living things that inhabited the earth millions of years ago. Well, I strongly reject that on the basis of scientific evidence. But let me just kind of go back to some key principles in education. Now, evolutionists say we've got millions of years, and you talk about the time scale must be much longer, billions of years. We say 6,000 years. What we would like to see is both those arguments held in tension in classes, so that children can
and the intervention one.
All right, other ones can be thrown in. Yeah. But I mean, this is from an education report commissioned in the late 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
Education should not attempt to shelter our nation's children from even the harsher controversies of adult life, but should prepare them to deal with such controversies knowledgeably. Educators must never set out to indoctrinate. Educators must never set out to indoctrinate. When dealing with controversial issues, teachers should adopt strategies that teach pupils how to recognise bias, how to evaluate evidence, and how to look for alternative interpretations, viewpoints and sources of evidence. And that's what we seek to do. Give children the two main alternative explanations, creation or evolution. Let them look at the evidence. We'd be very happy for children to examine fossils and discuss how they were formed and how old they were and so on. But give children the facts. Don't tell them you must believe this interpretation or you must believe that one. Don't indoctrinate them either in creation or evolution. Let them know there are two theories, each held by many people. Let them sort it out in their own time and their own way, which is true. Don't tell them that they must believe this, because that is indoctrination.
Yeah. There's a TV show called The One Show, which is your tea time TV, BBC.
I haven't got TV, so I haven't seen it.
Chat show, and it was a while back. But they got two TV personalities, and they were creating an argument, but they were both. It was two different flavours of Darwinian evolution, right? So in other words, there's nothing outside of that argument. We're going to have an argument within two different versions of evolution.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I thought was really bad that they were having that. So I agree with you in principle that they should not be indoctrinating kids with evolution.
I don't mind children being taught facts, but I do object to children being taught that a theory is a fact.
Right.